My name is Sean Levine.
And my name is Steph Hogan, reporting for the Lobby Observer.
For our broadcast today, we're going to be catching up with the Westboro High School and Lobby Observer alumni.
Here's Lily Vaughn with Caroline White.
Out to you, Lily.
Hi, I'm Lily Vaughn, reporting for the Lobby Observer. Today I'm here with Westboro High School alum Caroline White. Hi.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Thank you for meeting with me. Basically, we just wanted to come on here and ask a few questions about your college experience following your graduation at WHS.
Yeah, definitely.
The first question is, where do you attend college?
So I go to George Washington University in DC.
Cool. And what about George Washington was like appealing to you? Why did you choose that over your other schools?
Yeah, so my main goal was to be in a good journalism program in a city. So I had a lot of options that I really liked. And in the end, I was kind of deciding between Boston University and George Washington. And I just decided that I'd spent too much time in Boston. I love Boston, but I wanted to try something new. So I came here a few times to visit and I just loved it. And I loved DC and I really liked the campus. And yeah, so I decided to come here.
Cool. And you're a journalism major, you said?
Yeah, journalism major.
And how is like the journalism in college different from journalism in high school? How is that?
Yeah, so I think the first experience I kind of had with that was I joined the school newspaper, which is called The Hatchet. And just attending the meetings, like it suddenly felt a lot more intense, like kind of, I don't really know how to describe it. I guess just the way that it was run was a lot different than the Lobby O. I think like they send you to events like with a photographer. So it was a little more like everyone has a very specific job. Like I am part of one section. And so if I want to write something, I can only write for the culture section. So that was definitely one thing. And it's been really inspiring to work with some of the older kids. Everyone is really passionate about what they do there. And just attending the meetings, I feel like I'm already learning so much. And then I think my journalism classes are just a lot more specific. Obviously, in high school, you kind of take one journalism class that covers everything. And I'm really grateful for that experience because I kind of got a little taste of like broadcast, audio, writing. And now I'm going more in depth with each of those topics through my different individual classes.
Cool. So what kinds of like classes do you take? Like what kind of journalism classes?
Yeah, so this semester I'm taking some, kind of intro prerequisite classes. So I'm taking journalism theory and practice, video production, and then web production and social media.
And do you like broadcasting better or writing articles?
So honestly, I get this question a lot just when talking with other journalism majors. I don't really know yet. And I think part of the great thing about Westboro High School was, like I said before, I really got to try a little bit of everything. And I haven't really found like what my specific thing is yet, because there's really great things about all different types of journalism. So that's definitely something that I'm hoping to figure out while I'm here.
Yeah. And in terms of the school newspaper, you touched on how like you write for that. How did you, or you write, do you just write or do you also broadcast?
So the school newspaper is just writing. There's also like TV stations and radio stations you can join here, but the Hatchet is only writing, and we do a print edition and an email edition.
Cool. And how did you get involved with like your school newspaper? Was it like through your journalism class? Did you have to like apply to get it?
Yes, you have to apply. I actually didn't hear about it through a journalism class, but it was just through like this email through the School of Media and Public Affairs here. So I decided to apply. You have to give some sample work, and then you have to write a sample article of their choice. So in my case, I had to write a review of a restaurant that's on campus that like kind of everyone on campus goes to a lot. So yeah, it was kind of that process, and you got to, list your preferences of sections to work for, and then you can be admitted to more than one section. So I ended up being admitted for the opinion section and the culture section, but with the opinion section, it's a little more restrictive in what other sections you can write for, just because they don't want any like conflict of interest. So I ended up just going with cultural.
Cool. And also, it's kind of a more like broad question, and I know you're only a freshman, but how do you plan on using your major like following college?
Yeah, no. So, like I said before, I'm not really sure what path I want to take exactly, but at this point, I'm thinking that I kind of want to go like the public relations route. I'm really interested in that type of thing. So, that's definitely something that I'm looking forward to get more into in college.
Yeah, I like that. What other classes in college do you take other than journalism that have like stood out to you that you like?
Yeah, so for my journalism major, I also had to take political science, which pretty much everyone at George Washington has to take because everything in George Washington, being in DC is very politically centered. So I had to take American politics and government, stats and social science, which was really hard, but definitely important for journalism, of course. So those were two classes for my major. I've taken an art history course. I'm currently doing another art history course. So I really enjoyed that because our location is really great for things like that because you got to go to all these amazing museums. DC has a lot of really interesting museums that I had never even heard of before. So that one was a really cool one too. That was super interesting, especially getting to go and see these pieces in person.
Yeah. Um, in terms of college, do you take all of your classes in person or do you do any over Zoom? And how is that like affected?
Yeah, so this semester, my first week of classes was online, but I was still in the dorm, so it was fine. Online classes are, they're okay. But then my first semester, it was super flexible. A lot of my teachers would allow us to join through Zoom whenever we wanted. There was definitely a lot of COVID cases, so they were really flexible with that. And one of my teachers would like record a podcast version of his lectures. So if we couldn't make it to class, if you were feeling sick or anything like that, you could just listen to that. This semester, they're pushing a little more that unless you are a close contact or are feeling sick or in quarantine, that you do attend classes in person, which I think is good. So I think that in some ways, like it's made the classes more flexible. Like you can kind of make it work for you, whether or not you want to be virtual or in person, but it hasn't affected anything too much, which is good.
Yeah, that is really good how it's like flexible in college. Definitely a little more different than high school.
Definitely.
Yeah. Also, what is any like piece of advice that you'd give to like high school students who are just like going through the college process or interested in doing journalism like in college and like pursuing that further?
Yeah, so I think in terms of the college process, I actually visited GW early in my junior year or late in my sophomore year, and I didn't like it. I was like, I came here on a rainy day. It was a random, my dad decided to bring me just because he knew it had a good journalism program and was in a city. I'd never been to DC before. I kind of just always assumed DC was just all politics and government and like military and business. And I kind of like wrote it off and just was like, I'll apply, but I'm not interested. And I had some other schools that were kind of like my dream schools, and GW wasn't really that for me at first. But then after, getting all of my answers back from all my schools and looking more into it, I realized that I really, did like it. And I still wasn't quite sure about it when I decided to commit, but now I absolutely don't think that, of all the schools I applied to, whether or not I got into them, I really could not see myself anywhere else. I'm having so much fun here. So I think my piece of advice would be don't write anything off and apply to as many schools as you can, even if they're schools that you don't know if you necessarily love, because you can be really surprised. And I think with journalism, it's really important to have a really good set of, articles, broadcasts, podcasts, like anything like that. Um, just to show, because you're going to need that for applications, whether it's for college or for school newspapers. So I think have a really, strong kind of portfolio of work to show.
Yeah. Well, I'm happy to hear that George Washington is going well for you. And in terms of like a good portfolio of like work that you've done, what are some of like your favorite articles or things that you've like written about in college and back in high school for the Lobby Observer?
Yeah, so I think one of my favorite things to do always is reviews, whether it's like restaurants, movies. That's always really fun just because it's kind of like your opinion. There's not really right or wrong answer, and you can go really in depth with it, especially with movies and TV shows. I definitely did a lot of that in high school. And then I think in my whole time in journalism, one piece that really stood out to me was my junior year of high school. I wrote a piece about like the mental health services at our school at Westboro High School, and that just felt like a really important piece. And I got to interview a lot of different people. That was a piece where I did like surveys and stuff like that, so I got to go a lot more in depth with it, and I spent a long time on it, and that was one of my favorite pieces I've ever done.
That's awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with me. Good luck with the rest of your college experience.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Of course.
Thank you, Caroline, for taking the time to sit down with us. We wish you the best of luck with all that you do in the future.
This is Sean Levine.
And Steph Hogan, reporting for the Lobby Observer, signing off.